It appears that Russian dictator Vladimir Putin can no longer proceed unhindered, as Trump claimed to have an ace up his sleeve. Donald Trump's abrupt change of course regarding Russia disrupts the Kremlin's balance and opens a new phase of international pressure on Moscow through support for Ukraine and economic sanctions. But now Trump faces a choice: to punish Putin and risk a global conflict, or to stay within the bounds of political gain and rhetoric. And in this episode, we will analyze whether Donald Trump will actually decide to harshly punish Putin within the allotted 10 to 12 days. And what already indicates that Trump is indeed being pushed to take the risk and strike the Kremlin hard enough. I'm Alexei Pechi. It's July 29th. Let's analyze this topic. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, write any comment, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So, the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, announced the reduction of the previously declared 50-day deadline that he gave Russia to reach a peace agreement with Ukraine. Now, let me remind you, the Kremlin has only 10 to 12 days to stop the war. Otherwise, it will face powerful economic sanctions. There is no reason to wait. I am ready to impose 100% tariffs on countries buying Russian goods, said Donald Trump on Monday, emphasizing that the Kremlin is showing no goodwill. This bold decision has received broad support among expert and political circles in the United States. And observers believe that the initial deadline of September 2 only gave Putin more time to continue military actions. Because Putin's goal was never peace. His goal is and always has been the complete destruction of Ukraine. Moscow's response to the prior ultimatum affirmed the Kremlin's aggressive intent. And because just a few hours after Trump voiced his demands, Russia struck civilian targets in Ukraine. Experts believe that this time the economic levers could prove truly painful. And as Donald Trump's favorite newspaper, the New York Post, writes, quote, "The Kremlin should be worried. Russia's economy is a house built on shaky stilts. Putin has invested at least 40% of his budget into the war, while citizens are barely surviving." There is also concern about the possible reaction of Russia's largest trading partners, China and India. The threat of secondary sanctions and 100% tariffs may prompt them to look for alternative markets. Trump has no choice but to make the Russian dictator feel real pain. And now is exactly the time to do it. But here, political scientist and analyst at the Royal United Services Institute, Samuel Romani, states that the Kremlin's political strategy has come under threat after an unexpected move by United States President Donald Trump. The new ceasefire deadline that Trump gave Russia is not 50 days as before, but only 10 to 12, which could significantly change the dynamics of the conflict in Ukraine. It's important that Trump publicly stated, quote, "I no longer believe that Putin truly wants peace. If the Kremlin does not stop its aggression, there will be secondary tariffs and sanctions." The Russian response to all these did not take long, and the former president, now an official of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, the main alcoholic of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, called the actions of the United States a step toward war. Well, and the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov emphasized that Russia is fighting against the entire West alone. These statements were made amidst new shelling of Ukraine, including strikes on the Dnipropetrovsk region and increased Russian army activity on the front line. And here Samuel Romani notes that Putin was counting on a change in United States policy if Donald Trump returned to power. However, the new course of the American leader indicates the opposite. Washington is consolidating support for Ukraine through its NATO allies. Under the new agreement between the United States and the European Union, European countries, including Germany, Norway, Denmark, the United Kingdom, and Canada, are investing billions of dollars in purchasing American weapons for Ukraine. At the same time, Trump supported increasing NATO's defense budget to 5% of gross domestic product, a step he called a great victory for Western civilization. Economic pressure is also increasing. The United States may impose large-scale secondary sanctions against buyers of Russian energy resources. This will significantly complicate the operation of the Shadow Fleet and intensify the macroeconomic shock for Russia. It is important to note that recently the Russian Minister of Economic Development, Maxim Reshetnikov, directly stated, quote, "We are actually already on the verge of a recession." Against the backdrop of a labor market shortage, stagnant wages, and a decline in industry, the economic situation in Russia is worsening further. And now analysts believe that the pressure from sanctions could lead to serious internal political consequences for the Kremlin. And here they will quote Romani: "Trump has lost patience with Russia's tactics of delay and obstruction. The consequences of this change in perspective could lead to Putin regretting that he played in favor of Trump." But today, a quite reasonable question is being asked. President Trump's words indicate deep disappointment, but will any action follow them? Trump's potential response is tough secondary sanctions against buyers of Russian oil, including China and India. This could really hit the Russian economy, but such a move comes with high global market risks, including for the United States itself. While Trump is making ultimatums in Scotland, his trade team is negotiating with China and Sweden. And this is an important point. These negotiations could pave the way for a new trade agreement and even for a high-profile visit by Trump to Beijing. The question that is now worrying the world is whether Trump is ready to ruin these plans to sign a peaceful trade agreement with China. For the sake of Ukraine, which he had previously accused of receiving excessive United States aid. A decisive blow against Putin and possibly Xi Jinping would be a demonstration of real toughness and, importantly, Trump's independence. But inaction will only strengthen the position of critics who believe his irritation is simply a reaction to personal failure. In other words, it's some kind of failure of an ambitious campaign for the Nobel Peace Prize. And that's the sole disappointment. It's not that he can't achieve something in the geopolitical context, but that there's a personal failure. But it's important to remember here that we might face a completely unexpected turn regarding China's position. I'm not just talking about China here for no reason or about whether Trump is ready to take risks or not. The thing is, Trump is threatening 100% tariffs against countries that buy Russian oil. You've heard this more than once already. And China is one of the first on that list. And the trade negotiations between the American and Chinese delegations in Sweden are now key. Because just the day before, United States Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stated directly that 100% after. Opposing China, if it continues to buy Russian oil, will become a key point in negotiations with the Chinese in Sweden if they want to reach a truly beneficial trade agreement. Of course, compromises are possible, but it seems to me that Trump gave not only Putin but also Xi Jinping 10 to 12 days. And in 12 days, a trade deal between the United States and China should already be concluded. And based on that, Trump will take new punitive measures against Russia. All the pieces are coming together now. So for now, I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments. Subscribe, hit the bell, and like the video. That's all for now. Take care. Bye, everyone. Subtitles created by